Hey everyone, welcome to Cerwin Vega's. Today, I'm going to be finishing the restoration on the Cerwin Vega 417Rs. Now I've already got the major stuff taken care of and the obvious stuff. The foam, like most of the Cerwin Vegas, was rotten, falling apart. I've got the foam surrounds replaced on both woofers already, and I've got the crossover completely done. So I went through new caps, new resistors, new inductors, new wire, new everything. Those are working good. I've tested them. I'm satisfied with their operation. Now it's time to turn my attention to the cabinets. Now I've already done a little bit of work on the inside. I removed the old damping material, which was pretty much falling apart. The owner had kind of gone through there and may have removed a little bit, but he kind of added a blanket in there, and I think a piece of t-shirt was stapled in there to hold together whatever damping material was still left. So I've removed all that. I've gone through and sealed all the inside edges. I've checked all the bracing. There is little blocks of bracing that brace the inside corners of the cabinet. Everything was still intact and in good shape, so just quickly sealed it up with some caulking and added some new damping material. So that part's all taken care of. Now it's time to turn my attention to the outside. I'm not going to be removing any of the old veneer that's on here. I think it's worth it to save what's on here for the veneer. It is a real wood walnut veneer that was used on these. So I'm just going to be using some products to kind of bring that back to life. And then also on the back of these, it is a brown, I'm gonna spin these around. And then for the back of these, as you can see, they were just painted brown, and that was right from the factory. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, probably sand the back of this down. And I'm just gonna be putting some new brown paint on here and just make it look nice and new as I can. Nothing crazy. It's just kind of it's a trim clad flat leather brown paint is what I'm going to be using on the back of that. For the actual wood veneer, I'm going to be using this Restore finish. I haven't used this stuff before. I played around with it a little bit and it does a pretty good job. I was just using a rag when I was testing, and I kind of just did some spots on the bottom, which is a good place to start because the bottoms were really rough. Nobody's ever going to see them. So I tested this stuff on the bottom and I did a pretty good job, but it also says on here to use steel wool. So I was using just a rag to apply it, and it says for heavy scuffs and scratches to get that out, it says to use it's a very fine steel wool. So I'm gonna give that a shot and see if that helps and makes it work a little better, kind of get into the wood grain a little better, possibly. Once all that is done, to protect the veneer and the Restore finish product that I'm gonna be putting on here, I'm also gonna be using this feed and wax. So this is a beeswax and orange oil, basically a wood polish, and it says wood polish and conditioner. So I'm sure if you've got a real wood veneer finish on your speakers and they're in better shape than this and you just kind of want to protect it, and I think this even kind of brings out some of the look of it too. It kind of gives it a nice look and maybe a little bit of a shine to it. This is a pretty good product to use. But first things first, I got to remove the crossover and then the mid-range and the tweeter that are still in here. I'm going to get this thing laid down on its front, and I'm just going to get to the back here. I'm going to start sanding some of this down. As well as that, because everything's been painted brown on the back, and if you look at these tweeters, you can see that the slots for the screws are quite long, so it'll kind of fit in different mounting positions. This will be the same on the front as well. When the tweeter itself is in place in the cabinet, I don't know if you guys can see from there, but even with the screw installed, you're gonna see a bit of that brown in the back. So what they had used, and I'm pretty sure that would be from the factory, it's almost, it's kind of like a foam material they had used. They had stuck this in here, and it is kind of colored black, so you didn't see that from behind. I'm not really a huge fan of using these, especially with these tweeters. These are known to, these corners to break off because they are quite weak at the very edge here. And when you're putting the tweeter in place and you screw it down, you can see it kind of bend. And to me, that's just going to really result into maybe that end cracking a bit. And you gotta remember, these are pretty old. This plastic's getting brittle over time. There is nothing wrong with having that mounted directly on the back and nice and tightened up. So what I'm gonna be doing is basically painting this inside part where the tweeter's going. I'm gonna be painting that black so you don't see anything in behind it. But that's enough talk for now. I'm gonna get this thing all set up and I'm gonna start sanding on the back of that after I get everything removed. Okay, I got the backs all painted up there. Now I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna get this grill all touched up here. Yeah, that paint's gonna take a little bit to dry. I put it on pretty thick. So, all right. So when it comes to these grills, now this emblem appears to have been maybe glued quite well. So it either fell off or got knocked off. Sometimes the little tips here break off, and sometimes they're not glued at all. I think maybe they just a touch of glue on the end of it. So possibly somebody glued this after it fell off. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to get it off without breaking this part, but it may already be broken. So first I'm just gonna remove the cloth itself, and then that might help trying to get this off. So. Perfect. That's, well, took a little bit of the wood with it, but that'll be perfectly fine. I was hoping that it would come off mostly with the grill cloth, and then I can carefully remove this and hopefully don't break it. It's always nice to have. There. Perfect. So, the old grill cloth, so it had some holes and whatnot, and I'm sure it was getting a bit faded. Pretty much same color. It's got a little bit more of a, maybe a little bit more of a shine to it. I don't know if you guys can tell on the camera or not. but it's almost a perfect match too. Plus it just looks a lot better because it's not ripped. So garbage. So the first thing I'm gonna do, you notice how we got some wear in here, and once you stretch this stuff over, I'm worried about it showing through. Yeah, it's gonna kind of show through. I don't know if you guys can tell on there or not from the camera, but I'm just gonna lightly hit this with some black paint. Just to make sure we don't have any light color showing through, and it might look a little funny. So I'm going to do that quickly. There, so basically all I did was I just kind of hit the edges just real quick with some black spray paint, just to kind of cover up where the original paint had been wore off, just to make sure we don't, once we put the new cloth on, that it's not going to show through that. So I'm gonna let this dry up a little bit, and then I'll start throwing some cloth on. And there you go. So I got it stretched over there, but not too much. You don't see any imperfections in there. Now this stuff here, like this is, like I said, this stuff is fairly oh boy, that looks like shoot. Okay, well, I gotta pull these out. I wish I wouldn't have nailed those down yet. Okay, I'm now on day 2 of working on these cabinets. I ran out of time yesterday, so, but I'm back at it now. I'm gonna get working on the veneer itself. So a couple things I gotta do yet. I need to remove these pieces here that attach the speaker grill to the cabinet. They're just stapled on. I'm just gonna get my pick in there and work the staples out without damaging any of that veneer. Those are gonna come off before I can apply the Howard Restorer finish. Before that though, I'm gonna clean them up really good, make sure I got all the dirt and grime and everything off of these things. There's a couple other little things too. So as I was kind of playing around with these and just kind of test fitting everything and seeing how everything's gonna match up and line up, without anything behind there, it's not going to be flush with the front baffle, so it's no longer flush mounted. It's worse now with nothing behind it because I'm not going to be putting that whatever kind of styrofoam kind of plasticky whatever backing they had in there, whatever it was they used. It did come out a little bit more, but it still wasn't from factory. It still wasn't perfectly flush mounted. So to me, if it's mounted nice and flush, it's gonna look a lot better than this. And I actually had, it's actually some puckboard, white puckboard. It's probably about 1/8 of an inch or so, which is pretty darn close to what I need to get these perfectly flush mounted. So now instead of painting this part black on this cabinet, I'm not gonna be doing that. I did kind of fab up some pieces that fit in here as nice as I can with the tools that I have. I'm painting those black, and there's no need to have any of this in here painted because it's going to be perfectly flush with the front baffle. You will not see any of the sides or any of the back. Well, I'm super happy with how these turned out. That restorative finish really made that veneer pop. The new grill cloth looks excellent. Only thing left to do now is to get these two big monster speakers moved into the house, into my listening room, and hook them up and just make sure everything sounds the way they do. And if I gotta make so many adjustments here and there, I will do that. But I'm basically gonna call these done. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And remember, Cerwin Vega, big or small, save them all.